Hi all, welcome to what is actually going to be the last webinar of this year's series. We're focusing on healthcare science careers today, so thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to go through a little bit of housekeeping. My name's Sarah, and then I'll hand you over to Leslie-Ann and we'll get started on the full event. So if we could ask everyone to keep your cameras and microphones off, and that just helps us with the amount of people on the call. We are recording the session, so it'll be available on the Liverpool City Region Careers Hub YouTube channel shortly. So you don't need to worry about taking any notes or anything like that. This will be available for you to watch back. You should also have a chat box. This will be either at the top of your screen or to the side or bottom, depending on your Zoom setup. It looks just like a speech bubble. You can interact with the sessions in there, ask any general questions or ask any questions of our interviewers as well. Okay, this is a rough guide of what we're going to run through today. So we'll have our interactive session straight into our interviews and then finish up with the next steps. But what we did want to flag to you guys is, although you're joining this from across the Northwest and you might hear from people in one specific locality, there will be lots of support for you in your local area provided by your local UniConnect partnership. So you can see some of those ones up on the screen there. You will be able to access more information on the different partnerships via our Google Classroom, which I'll talk a little bit more about in our next step session. So that is everything from me. I'll hand over to Leslie-Ann to get started on the interactive bit.
Hello, so I'm just going to share my screen and then we will get going. One moment. Okay. So can everyone see my PowerPoint full screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I always like that reassurance in case I start the whole thing and you can't see it properly. So for anyone who hasn't been to Creating Careers, we always set pre-work to ensure that you are prepared as possible for the live webinar. Now, we want you to have feedback on that pre-work. So to start off this live session, we run a quiz to explore the topics that were set in your pre-work and to warm you up so you are nice and ready and alert to ask our volunteers some interesting and useful questions. So get involved, it helps everyone. No one is keeping score, it's just to help your understanding and learning for today's session. So the more you put into it, the more you get out. So please get as involved as possible throughout this section and throughout the whole of today's webinar. So we're going to start with our first task. In your pre-work, I asked you to give some advice to a student who is deciding on what area of healthcare science they would like to go in, and that advice was based on their interest and their academic study. Now, you were asked to do this by looking at the 4 main areas of healthcare science, and that's currently on the NHS's careers website. So let's see how well you know those 4 areas. So we're going to have a quick competition to start off and get everyone warmed up for this last session of the series of Creating Careers. So it's going to come in the form of fastest finger first. So you're going to be asked to match 4 main areas of healthcare science to their correct description. So the 4 areas are, let's just get them up. We've got 1, clinical bioinformatics, 2, life sciences, 3, physical sciences and biomedical engineering, and 4, physiological sciences. All sounds very, very intriguing to me. Okay, so there are your 4 areas. Now I am going to put some descriptions up in a moment and I want you to match the area to the description. So you can see each area is numbered. And when I put the 4 descriptions up, you'll see that each description has a letter next to it. So you need to match the correct number to the correct letter. So if you think number 1, clinical bioinformatics, is matched to the description that's got the letter A next to it, you would write 1A as your first answer. And you'd do that for all 4 areas. So you've got 4 answers, a number and a letter next to it to match the title to the description. And then once you have all 4 areas, I want you to put your answers in the chat. I want everyone to have a go, whether you're student, whether you're observant, teacher, parents, whether you're staff, have a go and let's see who can get it the fastest. Now, don't forget, just because someone might put an answer in the chat before you, it doesn't mean that they're right. So everyone, get your answers in as quickly as you can and see who has got the fastest fingers first. And then once we get all the answers in, you can then, I'll go through them and you can give yourselves a score out of 4. So I'm going to go through the descriptions now, and then I'll give you a few minutes to consider it. A little bit of silence from me for that bit, because I know you might have to think for a little bit for this one. So just a reminder, number 1, clinical bioinformatics, number 2, life sciences, number 3, physical sciences and biomedical engineering, and number 4, physiological sciences. So here are your 4 descriptions. Have a look at them, match them, get them in the chat. Okay, so A, you'll work in many laboratories on the prevention, diagnosis and treatment of disease. What do you think that matches? B, you'll measure what is happening in the body, devise new ways of diagnosing and treating disease, and ensure that equipment is functioning safely. C, you'll be responsible for developing and improving methods for acquiring, storing, and analysing biological data. And our last definition, D, you will assess different parts of the body to diagnose any abnormalities and sometimes provide treatment and care. So have a think through them, get your 4 answers in the chat or write them down on your paper, and let's see if anyone can get the correct titles match with the correct description. If you're struggling, have an informed guess. Look at the words in the title, think of what the words mean, and think what would be the most likely description to match that title. So I'll give you a few minutes without me distracting you. See who's the first to win. Silence is always a little bit eerie on a Zoom call when you can't see what other people are doing. Hopefully you're working away on your answers. Let's see who can get it in first. Remember, have a guess at some. If you're not quite sure, make an informed and educated guess. Have a look at the words, think, what might that mean? Okay, Molly, we've got 1. She's got 1 in. Can you get the other 3? Leon's got 1 in, but come on, it's the first to get all 3. Molly's got her second answer in. She's got 2 more to go. Come on, anyone else want to add to? Oh, Ella's put a suggestion in. Come on, any more answers out there? There's plenty of you on the call, don't be shy. give you another 40 seconds or so to have a think. Some of you may have put your answers on your sheet at home. Make sure you've got all 4 answers, even if you don't put them in the chat, make sure you've got them written down so you can mark them when we go through the answers. Leon's added another one. Oh, Molly's put 2 more. Oh, so Molly's had all 4 answers in. Okay, we'll give you another 20 seconds if anyone else wants to add their answers, and then we'll move on. Okay, so thank you for those who put their answers in the chat, and everyone else at home. I hope that you've got a list of all 4 of your answers so you can go through them and give yourself a score of 4. Right, so here are the answers. I think that was quite a challenging task there, get you all thinking on a sunny Thursday afternoon. Let's get our answers up. Right, okay, clinical bioinformatics, it's actually 1C. So your answer for that one should be 1C. So you'll be responsible for developing and improving methods for acquiring, storing and analysing biological data. So as these come up, maybe it might be a good idea to take a little picture of the screen so you can match all the areas to the correct description, and you can ask our volunteers any questions you've got about these areas. So number 2, life sciences. That answer was A, you work mainly in the laboratory on prevention, diagnosis and treatment of disease. Number 3, physical sciences and biomedical engineering. B, you will measure what is happening in the body, devise new ways of diagnosing and treating disease, and ensure that equipment is functioning safely. And number 4, physiological sciences. This is all about assessing different parts of the body to diagnose any abnormalities and sometimes provide treatment and care. So there are 4 main areas of healthcare science, and there are your descriptions explaining what they are. So I think by looking at fastest finger first, you could say that Molly definitely won that with all 4 in the chat. Does anyone get 4 out of 4? I know Molly got 4 out of 4. Does anyone else get 4 out of 4? If you do, wait up a little bit and just put in the chat, just say yeah, just tell me anyone else get 4 out of 4. Anyone else get 3 out of 4? Let me know your scores in the chat so we can see how you got on with that one. Come on, don't be shy. It's the last episode of the series. Help me out, and let's see what the scores were. Well done, Molly's beat Ella. I like that. I like that competitiveness. Leon, you can see some of the Creating Careers community are competing against each other with the healthcare knowledge. Come on, let's see your scores. There's definitely people on the in the audience there. Anyone get 4 out of 4 other than Molly? Or is she our only queen today?
3 out of 4 for me.
Oh, thank you, Leon. 3 out of 4. We'll be all being a bit shy today on the last series of Creating Careers. So with that in mind, we will move on. Right. Thank you for all getting involved in that. I hope that gives you a better idea of the 4 main areas of healthcare science. So now what we'd usually do for the second part of the Creating Careers quizzes, we'd go into this topic a bit further before we meet the volunteers. But as today is the last series of Creating Careers, I want to tell you about what we are planning for next year for our local students and how we can support you. Now, before I do, I just want to remind you, I remind on every episode of Creating Careers, if you want a career in healthcare, you need to ensure, or within the NHS, you need to ensure that you know the 6 NHS values. The NHS recruit using values-based recruitment. So you need to demonstrate in any applications that you share the values of the NHS. Now, page 3 of your pre-work gives you the link to an NHS values challenge to help you understand that fully. Now, if you feel that you need a little bit more help with that, get in touch with us, and also you may be interested to hear how our plans for next year are going to pan out and help you with this kind of thing too. So I'll just quickly whiz you through what we're going to do next year. So for series 3, instead of the traditional webinar format that we've had over the past 2 years, we're going to launch something called Creating Careers a Step Ahead. Now, this will be launched over a whole academic year, starting from the winter term, so maybe October time. Now, this is a localized course running over one academic year. So no matter where you are in the Northwest, there will be a version for this with your local localized support and guidance that's relevant to you. Now, it's designed to help you get a step ahead with submitting competitive healthcare applications to courses or jobs, employment, further study. Now, we all know that healthcare is a very competitive field, and we want to make sure that you have everything that you need to succeed in any applications or future steps. So I'll tell you a little bit about the course. So it's going to be recognised by Health Education England and other partners. And what we mean by that is that you can use this course to evidence and demonstrate your knowledge and commitment to a career within healthcare, and use this to help your applications to get a step ahead of the rest of the applications, hence the name, Creating Careers a Step Ahead. So it isn't only about applications, we will also support you to build the skills and knowledge that is needed once you are successfully on your course or employment or further study. So we're going to really support you with what's expected both academically and practically within a healthcare career. So what will happen is, as a student, you will complete a skills audit so you can reflect on how to get the most from the course, so we can tailor it to your strengths or areas for development, so it will be very personalised to you. We'll have careers interviews that will be with your local provider to ensure you are prepared as possible for your next steps. And there's going to be 3 core live webinars throughout the academic year next year, and that will explore topics such as communication, healthcare roles, skills, academic and employer expectations. Now, there will also be a minimum of 8 additional activities that you can complete independently across the year to have fully completed the Creating Careers course. Now, students who complete this project, this course in total, everything that's required of them, they will then be invited take part in in-person health and care experiences, site visits, and that will provide you with amazing, valuable experience for future applications, the opportunity to physically go to local clinical or non-clinical healthcare settings to really boost your applications. Now, just an example of those 8 additional activities that you may have to complete on the course. So it's things like the NHS values test, which I mentioned earlier. So if you've been on Creating Careers this year, that will really help you back. Quizzes based on previous Creating Careers live webinars, such as this one, that will all be available on demand. You've got the opportunity to attend university and college open days, taking part in mock interviews with members of healthcare staff with direct feedback, or you might have the opportunity to attend healthcare organisations or access VR, AR, simulation events bespoke to this programme and to your area where you live. So it's really going to be dead varied, it's going to be localised to you, and it's also going to be personalised to your own skills orders, where you think your strengths are, where you think your areas of development for. It will get you a step ahead and really prove that you are committed to a career within healthcare and that you're willing to put that extra work in to get to your next steps. So what I want to know is, are you interested? So a Zoom poll is going to come up, and I want you to answer one of the 3 options. Are you interested in this course? Yes, no, maybe. Put your answer in the Zoom poll, and we'll just get a little bit of a feeling of how you feel about next year. I know you're probably tired from the academic year already. You're ready for the summer, but just have a think. When you've had a break, this isn't going to be till October time. Do you feel that you're ready to have a little bit more support within the healthcare career? So let's see what the answers are. Sarah,
yes, it's winning by 100% of people have voted yes.
Oh, fantastic. So we can see that people are interested. That's good news. So if you are interested, every single one of you now, as your next steps, should be registering your interest with us so we can get that information of how to get involved in this course ASAP over to you. So the registrations are open in September with a deadline for October, but register your interest now. So you can either do that in the chat by just saying, yes, I'm interested, and then we can find your username and find out who you are that way through your registration for this event. Or if you want to have a little bit of a think about it and then register your interest later, you can send your registration of interest into Careers Hub at growthplatform.org, send your name, your year group and your school with the area that you live in, so that we know which local provider to send your interest to. And if you could use your school or college email address, that would be really helpful, so we can identify where you are in the Northwest. So please, if you're interested in that, register now, ready for October, so we can send you all the information that you need and get you a place on this course. So that is it from me for the last Creating Careers quiz of the year. I think number 15, is it number 15 or 14? And please get involved with our wonderful volunteers who are on today. They've got some brilliant tips, advice, interest in careers, so make the most of it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go from there.
Hello, I'm Molly and I'm going to be doing the first interview with Ella. I've basically got some pre-prepared questions, dead simple, got about 5, just to understand a bit more about healthcare science, because me personally, I've got no idea. So just to start off, just can you tell us a bit about your job title and what it entails?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Ella. I currently work for St Helens and Knowsley Trust as a part-time medical laboratory assistant. And basically what that means is within the blood lab, so whenever a healthcare professional takes a sample, whether that be blood, urine, or a swab or anything like that, it comes to me for something called pre-analytical receipt, which basically means just getting everything ready, checking all your IDs and stuff, ready for the sample to go on the analyzer.
Okay. So could you tell us a bit about your pathway into your career, like what kind of qualifications you did, what you need?
Well, to be honest, I took basically, it wasn't linear how I got here. So I did all my GCSEs at school, and then I went to sixth form, and I was the first year to be cancelled by COVID. So that was a little bit of a kick in the teeth with regards to what I wanted to do. I was actually going to do law, but obviously look at me now. That is just not for me. So I reached out to Health Education England, Leon actually, who's in the call. Hi, Leon. And we went from there, to be honest. So I already had obviously all my core GCSEs, and then on top of that, I do have A levels as well. But to be honest, when it comes to my job role, all you really need are your core GCSEs. You don't need any additional qualifications on top of that to come and work as at my job role anyway. If you want to progress, then you do need things like A levels, degrees. But for my job, it's quite entry level. It's for anyone and everyone that wants to give it a go.
Well, that's brilliant, really. Didn't know what you wanted to do and you contacted like Leon or something like that.
Yeah.
I kind of did like the same thing. I went into nursing, but I didn't know that was what I wanted to do. But I went like a Creating Careers thing, and that's how I found it.
Exactly. I was exactly the same. I just went crying to me advisor at school, like, I don't know what I want to do. And she put me in contact with Leon, which was obviously the making of me. So
no, I'm the exact same. I feel like you never know. You never you always need support with it.
Definitely.
Could you tell us what a typical day looks like for you in your role?
Oh, so do you know what? It differs because I'm part-time contracted. So my working hours adjusted the weekends, which vastly differs to the weekday. So if you're talking a weekday in the lab, I mean, we've been doing up to 3,000 patient forms a day lately. Yeah, it's a lot. That is from midnight to midnight. Yeah. So it does get quite hectic, whereas on the weekend you're looking at maybe 600 forms. But obviously to be trained for the weekend, you've got to train in the weekday. So, you come in, you put your lab coat on, and then it depends sort of what role you're given within the team, because obviously we're a big team. So in the lab, we have like the front desk where samples come and get dropped off in person, where we get the deliveries from other hospitals. So you could be doing that, or you could be on the urgent bench where all the blood from inpatients and the phlebotomy outpatients, you could be on there sorting out all the urgents. or you could be on what we call the middle bench, which is where like all like not outpatients but not inpatients. It's just sort of like all the routine work. That's where that gets done. Or you could be on the ice bench, which is just basically GP bloods. It depends. I mean, you do all of that by yourself for weekends, but you don't get near as much. So it's not as bad, but yeah, it's very varied, very varied.
I think that's quite interesting because I'm on the other side, like taking the bloods that you're off, and I've got no idea what's happening to it. But I've got right now.
I'd be the same. I wouldn't know where to even start with taking it.
So, do you work with any other NHS professionals, and if so, who and how you interact?
More or less like yourself, nurses,
Yeah.
doctors, phlebotomists, absolutely anyone that cares for a patient and could potentially take a sample, they'll probably come across me at some point. I mean, sorry to them. But honestly, everyone within the hospital will, I mean, I'm not saying they'll need the blood lab at some point, but you know, we're more than likely to cross paths. Yeah, more or less everyone. Feel sorry for them, but oh well.
Do you have any advice for any students that, like yourself, might not know what they want to get into? And you know,
I'd say, you know what, it sounds so cheesy, but don't do what I did and just think, oh, I've just got to suck it up and do what I was, you know, aiming for all these years. I was going to do law and Spanish, but if it hadn't have been for saying no, like just do what you want to do, then I obviously wouldn't be where I am today, which is part-time uni and part-time NHS work. And it's just all about knowing when to ask for help. Like, I know I am quite a prideful person. I hate having to ask anyone for help. It's like, it's a fatal flaw, to be honest. But at the end of the day, you know, you've got to realize that when you're in that position where you don't know what to do, there's going to be someone out there that does. So, you know, just don't be afraid. Don't be scared if you don't know what you want to do. Just ask. You know, if you don't ask, you don't receive. But if you do ask, there's, you know, the world's your oyster type thing. So yeah.
Absolutely. If you don't ask around, you've got no idea what's out there.
Exactly.
You know, you can't know what you want to do until you've seen like a lot of things. So
exactly, like we're not. It's I personally don't think it's fair on any kid to decide what they want to do at 16. So it's just about knowing that you have got options past that. It's not be all end all. You know, just do what you enjoy at the end of the day, because that's what it's all about, isn't it?
I think, you know, students think you've got to pick, you know, 3 subjects in college and then shipped off to wherever. It's quite linear. But I think joining things like this and like seeing different things that you're not offered in college and stuff like that, you've got to look on your own to find where you want to end up.
Exactly. You've got to take that initiative, haven't you?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Could you tell us some of your favourite and least favourite parts of the job?
Oh, least favourite, it's sort of like a bit of a double-edged sword. The working hours can sometimes be a little bit freaky. Like sometimes you could be doing a 9-5 some days, and then some days you could be doing, you know, a 6 p.m. till midnight. It varies a lot because the labs are 24/7, just like the rest of the hospital. So it does annoy me, obviously, that having to give up Saturdays and Sundays, but at the same time, that's just how it is. So I can't really complain too much, but that would probably be my least favourite part. But then again, that's not even really part of the job role, so it just depends what sort of contract that you're offered. But part of the least favourite part of the job role, I'm not lying, but I honestly wouldn't say that. I don't really have a least favourite. I have a favourite, and that's the urgent bench. I absolutely love just getting stuck in and just you go a million miles an hour on it because you're sorting out you could be getting like trying to think what like the word is for it. You might call it a lumbar puncture. We call it a CSF.
Okay.
As a nurse, but you could be getting one of them and they are ultra urgent. But then the next thing you know, you come down with an antenatal blood, which is just like booking blood for pregnant women. So it's so varied and it's so fast paced. And for someone like me that doesn't shut up, it's a bit of peace for the rest of the lab because you're just so hyper focused and it's just great. So that's probably my favorite part. Just that one little facet of the job holds so many different things, and I really like that.
Okay, and last question, any kind of skills and knowledge you gained in school or college or anything like that you still use today?
Oh, do you know what I'd probably say? Although school, it's quite structured, in the sense that, you know, you've got your timetable, you've got all your lessons where you need to be.
Yeah.
I think there is an element of having to organize yourself around that as well. And I think that sort of organization, you know, getting yourself into a routine, that has massively helped me. Because like I said, like, I go to uni part-time and I work at the weekend, but you do pick up overtime shifts because that's how the NHS is, which, you know, it's great, especially for students, a little bit of extra money. But when you're doing so many things at once, it really pays to be organized and to be quite disciplined with yourself, because, you know, you'll be taking on extra shifts, you'll be doing your own shifts, you'll be doing possibly schoolwork as well. So I think school, if you get into that routine early of saying, oh, even if it's just little things like, I'll do my homework at 6 o'clock, and you stick to it and do your homework at 6 o'clock, it puts you in the right frame of mind for later in life when you do genuinely need to organize yourself around yourself. So yeah, I'd probably say the organizational skills, if anything.
Yeah. I was terrible with organisation before the NHS, before uni, and that got me into shape. The panic of being unorganised.
Oh, I know.
Well,
I still find now that I'm like, oh God, I've completely double booked myself, but you know what? That's life.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the interview. I think I'm heading off to you now to interview Glinda.
Yep, I do know about that.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Right, is it just on to me now again?
Think so.
Perfect, right, okie dokie. So as you guys know, my name's Ella. I will be interviewing the lovely Glenda today. Glenda, could you just tell us your job title and what your job entails?
I can. So I'm Dr. Glenda Beekman.
Ooh.
And I'm a research associate and a workforce development lead for the NHS.
Wow.
And what I do is I look at patients that have rare diseases, looking at their genetics to find out what's actually causing their conditions. So Ellie, you take the bloods.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a process where we extract DNA or RNA from those bloods. And then we do using the bioinformatics, we start to look at their genetics of their DNA to find out what's actually happening in there that might be causing a condition in an individual or in a family. And my other side is I actually go out and teach genetics and genomics to the NHS workforce.
Wow, so you've got a lot on your plate then.
I do.
Do you know what? It's crazy because obviously in the lab we do receive bloods for, would it be cytogenetics that you receive? DPYD testing and things like that?
So DPYD generally happens at Liverpool.
Yeah.
So some of the different laboratories have different tests. So that is where some of the healthcare scientists that you're talking about actually do the work, and that's what they'll work on.
Yeah.
Deciding whether they've got variants in that particular gene and whether certain treatments should be given or not because of the variant that they're carrying. So that will align to all different. So that then brings in like pharmacogenetics. So treatments because of certain conditions, the genetics around it, and whether certain treatments are right for that individual. So all this healthcare, learning this science has snowball effects, starting like with yourself, taking a blood,
exactly,
and how it then moves through the process.
Exactly, it's crazy, isn't it? And it makes you think, where do you even start? So can you tell us a bit about where you started, how you got onto this path of this crazy job? It's amazing.
Very strange because obviously I'm a lot older than this team of people here. So my career started off with me in accountancy. And that was the route I went down. And my favourite subjects were always maths and science and languages. So those were my favourites. So I went down the accountancy route, brilliant. But at 32, I decided really that wasn't for me. I wanted a different career line. And I chose to go back to university and do another degree, which was forensic science. And that gave me an open area of looking at different sciences and what would fit. And out of that, genetics was my favourite topic. So then I did my PhD, hence I became a doctor, and then joined as a geneticist at the hospital. So
Wow.
my path went from one
One
side
to the other.
to different.
That
Yeah.
just goes to show that obviously I'm talking about I didn't know what I wanted to do at 16, but it can happen at any age, can't it? And it's just all about saying to yourself, no, I deserve to do what I want. And
Well, you do, but
Good for you.
sometimes you need to try it,
yeah,
but then
exactly.
you might find that's not for you.
Exactly. And there's no shame in that, is there? There's
No,
definitely
none
shame
whatsoever. None whatsoever.
Wow. So what does a typical day look like for you then with both of these roles? How do they often overlap or anything like that?
Constantly, they overlap 100%. So it could be probably 3 days in the teaching session that I might be out basically up to Barrow-in-Furness or down to Macclesfield or the Isle of Man teaching GPs that are training to be GPs, or it might be nurses, or it might be pharmacists or whoever. So it's varied, but I have to have that skill set to teach at all different levels. But alongside that, I will be looking at information around patients, or I might have patient groups where I'm talking to them, but I need to be able to find an answer for them, which is the bioinformatics side, which I think clinical bioinformatics came on one of those little.
Yeah.
For. So obviously I've got to understand that data as well, interpret it and decide whether that's relevant or not relevant. And in between that, doing lots of meetings and other things. So yeah, my day varies from, there isn't a day that repeats.
It sounds so rewarding, honestly. I don't know how you do that. Speaking of organization, honest to God, I don't know how you must manage that. Would you say that's one of the sort of softer qualifications that you might need? Like obviously you've got your hard ones, like your A-level.
I think you've got to be able to manage your time, and like you were saying, getting yourself into a very strict routine.
Yeah.
Organization skills, communication skills are key. And if 100%. You've got that all mapped out, don't be late for something, be early.
Exactly.
And I think if you can get all that structure in place, then things will work.
Exactly.
But you do need those groundings and those core elements.
Definitely. I think the core elements as well speak definitely on the likes of communication. You must come across so many different people. Like, I mean, I'm not even just talking other NHS professionals. I mean, we're talking like students, everyone, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So if you could give any sort of type of advice to sort of like a student that might be in, what once was your boots, what would that be?
That wants to do what I'm doing, you mean? Is that what you're asking?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think anything in science, if you want to do it, this is me, you got to have a fire in your belly, a passion for it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I don't think science or healthcare science or anything within the NHS is a 9-to-5 job. You've got to have a caring attitude and that fire in your belly and that want to do good. And I think as long as that's there, then I think you can achieve anything.
Definitely.
You can go from having your GCSEs to your PhD or whatever. So, but you've got to have that desire and want.
Exactly. It's definitely that baseline, isn't it? I mean, nobody's paths are ever going to be strictly completely linear. No. I mean, everyone's going to be taking all these twists and turns everywhere. So it is just about, you can find your motivation a lot easier when you've got that fire, I think, definitely.
But you're always going to ride the roller coaster.
Oh yeah, that's the fun part.
And I always remember somebody saying to me, your job or your whatever work you're in is like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You go up and you come down, but then you go back up again. And the highs are brilliant. The lows,
they match each other, don't they, in intensity?
You know you're on that track back up on a high. So
exactly. It's just all about, waiting on the best times, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what would you say is one of the best times? What would you say your favorite part of the job is?
When I get a diagnosis for a patient.
Oh.
That is ultimately the best.
But it's all about, isn't it?
You can get, yeah.
Definitely. So on the flip
side, my negative is when I can't.
Oh, it kills me as well. It kills me. Oh, perfect. So we've talked a little bit about skills and knowledge, and obviously that would have been in a school setting. So obviously we know that you've been to school as a kid, you've been to university. What would you say that you learned in those sort of academic settings that you still use today?
The time, being able to organise my time.
Yeah,
definitely.
it's so important.
But also, I think the communication is a big key. You know, I think more so when you're in university, you know, when you've got to stand in front of somebody and give a presentation, and a lot of people don't want to, the bottle girls and everything else. And overcoming that, knowing the people you're talking to and having respect for people. And I think that's fine. I give presentations constantly and teach. And every single one I go to, I've got nerves in my belly. And I think if you've always got nerves in your belly, you're always going to do a good job.
Exactly, because that just goes to show, I mean, how much you want it to work out.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, well, it was amazing to meet you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we're all done. Did I manage to keep the time? I never keep the time ever. I'm talking about timekeeping and organisation, but I'm the worst one for it.
You kept perfectly to time. Thank you.
Perfect. Oh, thank you.
Okay. We have got a question for Ella and Molly in the chat. Can you tell the students on the call why they might want to do a career interview with a potential mentor?
Do you want to go first, Mol, or should I?
I don't mind.
I can remember my first interview. It was with Leon and his colleague Keela, and oh my god, like I look back on it and I shouldn't cringe because obviously everyone's got a starting point, but just seeing the gap in between what I interview like now and what I interviewed like then, it's crazy. There is such a gulf of just knowledge and things like that a mentor can instill into you, which is just perfect. It gives you like a bit of insider knowledge, because if you can think, you can sort of sit there and read the interviewer as well as they can read you, the interviewee. You're flying.
No, I can only. I'm so sorry, my dog is just bursting.
Oh, don't worry.
Please. I can completely second that. I think the interview gave me insight on things I wasn't even aware of, roles I didn't even know existed, especially when there's like no nurses, nothing like that in my family. I had no idea. So I think insider knowledge, and they can also signpost you if they don't know answer the question, they can find you someone.
Exactly. They've got the connections and the networking to be able to do it. Yeah, definitely.
So that'd be my answer, really.
That's fab. Thank you guys so much. Does anyone else have any questions they want to pop last minute in the chat for any of our interviewers or interviewees today? I'll go through our last couple of slides. If anybody does have anything, please do pop it in the chat. If you don't want to put it out for everybody to see, you're very welcome to send it direct to myself or Leslie-Ann or Leon, and we can ask it on your behalf. But I will just pop our last couple of slides up to give you a little overview. So as I've mentioned, this is recorded. It's going to be on the City Region YouTube channel, so you can watch it back. Also on there are the recordings of all of the other webinars we've done in this series, which is 14 other webinars covering pretty much every area of the NHS you can imagine, and some that you probably didn't know existed too. So please do go and check that out, have a little look and watch any that might be of interest. After this, you'll get a follow-up email from myself that's got another piece of work from Leslie-Ann for you, which is a roadmap that gives you a chance to reflect on the session, any additional questions you might have, whether you think it's a good career option for you, and just generally start to build those skills that you'll need in terms of reflective practice within the NHS. You'll have the option to complete an evaluation, which we would be really grateful for, and the option to sign up for a follow-up one-to-one appointment, which will be with UniConnect in your region, if you want to talk about your next steps, how you can get from kind of where you are now to where you would like to be. And finally, you'll also have the Google Classroom link. Now, this was in the email with your Zoom link in it, but basically it looks a little bit like this, and it's got all the recordings linked for you to watch back, all the pre-work and things like that. And it gives you a chance to ask questions, get in touch with the relevant Uni Connect and everything like that. We really strongly encourage you to join this. So that'll be included as a link in the email, and all you need to do is click through. We'll also add an extra post on there for you to indicate your interest in the Next Steps program. In the A Step Ahead program, if that's something that you might be interested in. But that is kind of everything from me. We hope you really enjoyed this webinar, and if you've come to ones before, the series in general, just check chat to see if we've got any last questions. Not just yet. So if that is everything, thank you so much for coming along, and we'll hopefully see you next year on the new program. Thank you.